Hello friends, this is Scott. We're out here for phase 2 of our building cot compost, and yeah, we're ready to turn the bin. So the first video we did is we layered it up with 6 to 8 inches of brown, 3 inches to green, and then added water and the air as we building the pile. And now we're ready to flip the material from one bin to another. It's been approximately 10 days since I did the first video, I believe, and I usually let it sit for maybe 10 days, 2 weeks. So it's about time to get this material moved. Now I will show in this video that I had to fill this bin back up because it had shrunk. And again, we want to have a lot of volume when we first start, because the material is going to shrink as it decomposes. So I usually like to have it maybe up to here, but today we're just not going to do that. We're going to get her mixed. And again, it's not a hard process, but it's like anything in this life. I don't care whether I scrub a toilet. I want to be shown once so I know what to do. So yeah, this is a fairly simple process, but I want to show you exactly what to do so you don't have anything to worry about. So let's get started on flipping this bin. So yesterday was chore day, and I had to mow the entire property, and I needed raw materials so we could continue on with our compost journey. So yeah, got quite a bit there. So I brought it to the backyard, and again, the old wheelbarrow's getting used. But yeah, this is all about using what you got on the land. A lot of people throw grass clippings away, and I think that's a sin, because they're very useful for this process. Make very, very valuable commodity here, this black gold. But anyway, that's how far the material had shrunk. And yeah, we need to build it up, because again, as the material decomposes, I flip from bin to bin, I'm going to have less material at the end. So yeah, we're going to build it back up. Now, this is a recap of how you build compost. I always start with 6 to 8 inches of brown on the bottom, and then I do 2 to 3 inches of green on top. Then I add a little bit of water, and then I do another 6 inches of brown, 6 to 8, 2 to 3 inches of green. This is not an exact science. I'm not getting my tape measure out to measure this, but you just do your best to kind of give those amount of layers. I don't want thicker layers because the material really doesn't mix very well when you're doing the turning. So again, that's an approximation, but that's what you need to do, and to make the best compost as quick as possible. Again, this is a 4 to 6 week period that I could have some screenable compost. Now, not all of it's going to be done in that period of time, but I've decided, because I'm making compost several different ways, anything that's viney or bigger pieces, I'll throw in a static bin and just let them rot. Because this is production compost, I'm going to be moving the material from bin to bin regularly. I want the lightest, loosest material. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just use grass clippings and leaves in this, and a little bit of biochar probably. I always wet in each layer. Not a big deal. Just you don't want it so it's anaerobic, but you want to have it moist. And then again, I'll show you again. We just add another layer of green after we had that layer of brown. Again, 6 to 8 brown, 2 to 3 green. And then just water it in and just keep on layering. Now, the only reason I can make this stuff is because I have the green from the lawn clippings, and I stored leaves from the fall. If I didn't have the brown material, I would not be able to make the compost like this unless I had another source like straw or hay or something like that, which would have a lot of seeds in it. So yeah, you've got to definitely in the winter, or I should say fall and winter, collect all the leaves you can and store them so that you can make hot compost during the nicer months. The compost material or process will work during the winter. It's just, it will slow down a little bit, but it's the chemical reactions that make the heat. It's not the temperature of the outside. Obviously, if it's hot outside, the material's going to be warmer, but you can still make hot compost all winter if you had enough materials. But generally, it's no fun being outside trying to move material. So yeah, the composting process like this is more of the warm weather activity. But yeah, it's not a hard process, but I do want to get it as heaping as I can. And again, this was yesterday, and I needed to get this bin built up. Now, you may not have enough materials at one time to build an entire bin. That's fine. Just keep building layers as you can. And then once you finally get it full, heaping, whether it takes you a week or takes you, 6 weeks or whatever, just go ahead then turn it once you have the materials. Again, it'll start decomposing where the brown and the green touch, but it's not going to really start, heating up and really decomposing until such time as all that material is mixed together. So yeah, anyway, got it pretty good for today, and that's about as good as it's going to get. So I do have some grass clippings to start building a new bin once I get this material moved. But there you see the more fresh layers on top and the older layers on the bottom. So yep, so we're going to get this moved. And again, I normally let this sit for a little while, but I'm going to go ahead and do her. Now this is a compost thermometer. You can pick these up pretty simply. Sometimes you have to get them, on the internet because they're kind of hard to find in stores, but it's just a probe. And again, the whole composting process is that where the middle of the pile is where that's really going to heat up. And that's where all the heat starts. And then as you mix the material, you want to flip the outside into the middle and get that material all mixed in. So yeah, the temperature is ambient temperature right now. I better get rid of that. The thermometer, I was going to leave it there, but that cow would probably eat it. So, yep. So now we're back to the next day, and I see that tool there I have. That's the wrong tool. Of all the stuff I moved down here to make compost, the one thing I forgot was my manure fork or my hay fork, and that's a critical component when you're making compost. So I've got to I got to finish this video. I'm going to go ahead and use what I got. So you see, a shovel works pretty good with this loose material. And the shovel will become handy as this material turns more into soil. As I flip, it'll become a useful tool. But you'll see here in a minute that as soon as I start hitting wet, thicker leaves and stuff, it's worthless. It's just it's like you're trying to scoop into sponge. So yeah, without the manure fork, I'm going to go ahead and complete this task just by using my hands and just trying to again mix those layers. Just mix that brown and green together. And again, I gotta repeat myself a lot, but it's approximately 3 parts brown to only 1 part green. Again, my layers are 6 to 8 inches of brown, 2 to 3 inches of green. Water it in, and the air is added as you're mixing the material. And then as it starts to shrink down and starts to compress, then you need to flip it because that gets more oxygen in, and then that material will heat up again. This pile, when I first built it last week, it got up to probably 160 degrees, 165. And then it'll bake the material for quite some time, maybe even 7 days, 7 to 10 days. And then it'll start cooling down, and that's when you turn it. So again, I'm just showing you the process as I'm also going to water as I'm mixing that material because it does dry out. Now, I don't want it soppy, but it's not, again, not an exact science. If it's a little moist, you don't have to water it much the next time. If you're in a real humid climate, you may not have to use too much water. If you're in a dry climate, you're going to want to water it because without water, nothing's happening. So without any of these ingredients, really nothing is happening. But yeah, I wish I had that fork because this is going to, as I get lower down here, it's going to be a little harder on the back. Now, as you see, those removable slats are really nice because I can, either add them or take them off depending upon, what I'm doing here. And it keeps the material in mostly, so I don't have a big, hopefully not making a big mess on the ground. And there's many types of compost bins. They can be as fancy as you want. I used to build these when I had my compost business, urban compost systems, and people, I build them in singles, doubles, and triples. I think a 5-bin system would be very nice, but it's a little bit overkill because there's the amount of material you actually have at the end is not a lot. And if I had 5 bins and kept flipping 5 times, I would have maybe a foot of material probably. So anyway, you can always, when I screen the material from the 3rd bin after it's been sitting, which, the 4 to 6 weeks, I'll screen it. I'll use what falls through the screen into a wheelbarrow, and then whatever doesn't, I'll throw back in the middle bin and then just let it keep decomposing. But yeah, and again, I love the slats because you can, again, move them when you need to get to the material, and you can add them when you need to keep the material in. So. But yeah, I'm getting kind of tired of this stooping stuff. I'm getting too old for this. So do not do this without a manure fork. I was down there and I was determined to get a video out this week and get this done. And I had all the raw materials, so I wasn't going to waste the time. But I didn't need to put in this much effort. Again, hot composting is work, but if you're actually using these really loose materials and not a bunch of viney stuff that's going to stick together, it's not a huge deal. And you can do it with your by hand. It's not that big a deal. But I tried to use the shovel again, and I'm just like, that's pretty much it's good for the top, and the bottom layers is about all that shovel's good for. But I'm getting down to where I need to be. Now, the cows did knock a couple of those slats off, so I did, again, you just add them as you're building the material. And I wanted you to be able to see a little bit inside the bin, or I could have just left them, totally on. Now, these slats are old, and what you can do to freshen up your bin is you can just go buy new, cedar fence slats, cut them to size, and just replace the fronts. It'll make it look a lot nicer. What's kind of cool with these is I used to build a lot of birdhouses and other types of wood projects. And when you have old stained boards from composting systems and you plane them down and you sand them really good and you build what you're going to build, and then you oil them up with, I used a mineral grade, food grade mineral oil, and they look like mahogany. I mean, really beautiful wood. So don't throw anything away. Use those slats to make things like birdhouses. Now there's what you see is how the material looks after it's been baked for a week in the middle of the pile. So that material, you can tell that gray has literally been in the middle. That was the material that was the most composted. Now you do have to have a volume of material to make compost. You just can't do a foot layer and think you're going to get hot compost. Now this is approximately a 3 by 3 by 3 situation with this bin. So that's enough material to get the core to heat up. And then you have again, the material on the outside is not going to do much, which is great because as soon as I add worms to this, the worms can't live in the heat, but they want to move to the outside of the bin. So again, the middle will be really hot, the outside's not so much, and they'll have bins side by side, so the earthworms can then move to safety and then move back in when the material cools. But having all that done, I still have materials to start my next bin, and here we go. So again, I always start with brown on the bottom, so 6 to 8 inches. I like to do that because the bottom's where it's going to get slimy. And if you have grass clippings, the grain, that's going to be the slime. So if you put brown down, it'll soak up most of the moisture and keep it pretty slimeless, I should say. So that's how much I was able to make with the grass clippings I had from this mowing. I did mow the outside seeds area, but I didn't use those grass clippings because they have a lot of weed seeds. That's all the leaves I have. So again, you've got to collect leaves. So I checked the temperature the next day, and it looks like it's about 118 degrees. So yeah, it's heating up. So we'll see where it gets to. But that evening, I decided I want some biochar to add to my new bin. So I had to have a fire and enjoy the evening. It's such a nice, beautiful day. Well, thanks for watching this video. And if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button. My channel's growing, but I'm not quite where I need to be yet. But I think I've built a pretty good library of videos, and I'd really appreciate you checking them out. Thanks for watching.